Hello students. Today I am going to start section 2 in which I will discuss philosophical and constitutional framework of Indian Constitution. In BPSC it is called an environmental setting of Indian administration. I have already covered the first topic of section 2, that is evaluation of Indian administration, in which I completed Mauryan administration, Mughal administration, British administration. Then also I covered a post-independence in the evolution of Indian administration since independence. Now I am taking up section next topic, that is environmental setting of Indian administration, or in UPSC it is called philosophical and constitutional framework of Indian Constitution. You know, Indian administration is an ecological phenomena. It is influenced by ecology and in turn influence ecology also. The most important ecological factor which influence Indian administration is constitution. You know, constitution is the supreme law of the nation. That is why it has significant influence on Indian administration. The structure, nature, functioning of Indian administration is completely influenced and determined by Indian Constitution. So today I will discuss Indian Constitution, its provision which influence nature, structure of Indian administration. Wheresoever BPSC exam is concerned, in BPSC there were two times question asked in this topic. First there was question that discussed Indian Constitution is a social document. This question was asked in BPSC. And second, there was question critically review the provisions of Indian Constitution which influence structure and nature of Indian administration. So this topic is very important. I do hope this topic you may have covered in your polity portion also, but here you require to have different approach when you prepare for public administration. You know, Indian Constitution is very common term. In general, we used to we coin this term very frequently. In recent, this was very much in news because several persons, while having national flag on one hand and Indian Constitution on the other hand, were marching to protect and uphold Constitution. In recent, it was very much in news. The Indian Constitution has become, you can say, not merely the supreme law of a nation, it has more than one justification. I have tried to point out that the four dimensions of Indian Constitution. It is basically most important social document. If you want to study Indian society, if you want to understand the basic structure of Indian society, Indian Constitution will help you. You know, individual in general constitute society. Individual form society. Society has several segments. One important segment is called political society. Political society can be termed as a state, nation, country, whatsoever term you use. Now, to run country or nation, one requires constitution, and constitution here is the supreme law of the nation, which gives authority to all institutions of government. Even public draw authority from Indian Constitution. So every institution in government and outside government is very much influenced by the Constitution. That's why Indian Constitution is called supreme law of nation. You know, all subordinate law, all laws made by Parliament or Supreme Court are to be subordinated to Indian Constitution. In case of violation, judiciary has power of judicial review and it can declare null and void in case of violation of Constitution. You know, Constitution is also sources of authority. The executive, the judiciary, the legislature, all branches of government draw authority from Constitution. So Constitution is ultimate source of fountain of authority. Here you can point out. And last but not the least, Indian Constitution is the most sacred document. It is most holy, so you can say, text of Indian society. Now there is growing tradition that in every person now taking oath while having constitution, that I hold constitution, संविधान का शपथ लेता हूँ। आज आम नागरिक भी लेने लगे, जहाँ देखो सब लोग संविधान का ही दुहाई दे रहा है। तो संविधान, recent Prime Minister himself told the Indian Constitution the most sacred document. We can respect this document, and wheresoever any confusion or any difficulty arises, here Indian Constitution to give direction. So Indian Constitution has more than one justification. It is not merely supreme law of nation. Get a point? Now I will discuss what is the difference between provision and feature. In general, we may have seen several times what are salient features of Indian Constitution, what are characteristics of Indian Constitution. Take any book, you may find a long list of features and characteristics of Indian Constitution. Can you tell me what any some features or significant characteristics of Indian Constitution? Yes, I can give you some here. That is, it is the lengthiest written constitution of the world, because everything is in constitution is written, documented, and nothing left for discretion. That's why it becomes bulkiest, or you can say the lengthiest written constitution of the world. Getting a point? It has more than 450 articles, to 12 schedule, and you can say 25 parts. Getting point? Even after independence, there may be more than 100 times amendment. That's why Indian Constitution become the most lengthy written constitution of the world. Getting a point? Number two feature you can take that it is drawn from various sources. When Indian Constitution was formulated or enacted, the constitution maker took inspiration from different constitutions, like Constitution of Ireland, Constitution of England, Constitution of America. The most significant influence on Indian Constitution is from British Constitution, plus in Government of India Act 1935, and other countries like Africa, South Africa, Germany also have contributed significantly while formulating constitution in India. So Indian Constitution is basically drawn from various sources. It is inspired from various sources. Several good things from different constitutions are tested, examined, and adapted in Indian Constitution. Now it is blend of rigidity and flexibility. You may find maximum portion of Constitution can be amended with simple majority. For some majority, especially for some amendment, a special majority is required. And wheresoever the federal structure is concerned and you require amendment, then you require a special majority plus more than 50% states approval. Then only one can amend provision of Indian Constitution related to federal structure of Indian Constitution, like in previous GST. When GST was given constitutional shape, it got approval for more than 50% states of the Indian Federation. So this is the basic thing required to keep. Now you can say India adopted parliamentary form of government. Can you tell me what is parliamentary form of government? Parliamentary form of government means a government which is based on ministerial responsibility. Ministers are collectively responsible to legislature for their policy and administration. One minister heading some department or ministry is responsible for all omission and commission of official and administration and assume responsibility. So this is parliamentary democracy, which has two head of executive, constitutional head and political head, and there are several other features also that executive has no fixed tenure depending on majority in the Lok Sabha. Now you find in Indian Constitution one more feature, that is synthesis of parliamentary sovereignty and judicial supremacy. In India, sovereignty does not lie in parliament. Sovereignty lies in individual citizen. And here, parliament is sovereign body, the most important body. It has power to amend constitution. It has power to influence judiciary. It can remove judges of Supreme Court and High Court by impeachment. On the other hand, independence of judiciary is an important hallmark of democratic country, and judiciary has power of judicial review. It can declare any law made by parliament in case of violation of constitution null and void. So here both as supremacy of judiciary and sovereignty of parliament both are at the same time try to be restored. In India, there is integrated and independent judiciary. Integrated judiciary signifies existence of unitary feature, while independent judiciary shows federal feature. It shows federal feature. So here in India, there is independence of judiciary means judiciary is independent of government or executive or legislature, and it is integrated one means at apex level is Supreme Court, at middle level is High Court, and at lower level district court or subordinate court. So this is integrated one. They have some functional relationship between these three. Now there is Indian constitution is federal with unitary biasness. It means it is synthesis of both federal feature and unitary feature. That's why Indian constitution is also called quasi-federal. Quasi-federal means it is having federal feature with unitary biasness. There are several federal features like division of power, like written constitution, like independence of judiciary. On the other hand, it has several unitary features also like a single citizenship, single constitution, integrated judiciary, etc. So what I mean to say that it has having both the things which make Indian administration a very significant one. Now we have fundamental rights. We inspired it from the Constitution of America. Fundamental rights basically entails or contains all the provisions and which are given individual as a right, which are very much essential for overall development of individual. Getting point in Indian Constitution, earlier there were 7 fundamental rights. Now there are 6 fundamental rights. These rights are justiciable. These rights are, you can say, protected by Supreme Court, and these right establishes political democracy in country. So this is a very important point. Now, directive principle of state policy. It is also one of the important feature of Indian Constitution. It is drawn from Constitution of Ireland. It is basically concerned with establishment of welfare state objective. It establishes social economic democracy in country. It contains or it includes all those, you can say, goals and objectives which all the principles of governance which Indian Constitution were interested to give to shape after independence. So these are a very important feature of directive principle. Under Article 31, 36 to 51, there is provision of fundamental directive principle. Getting point? And you can say these are non-justiciable, but now due to several reasons, it has become virtually justiciable, and government cannot defy it for long because the democratization expects that government should play active role in social economic scenario. Now fundamental duty. Earlier it was not in Indian Constitution. It was incorporated with 42nd Amendment. This fundamental duty are those duties which are supposed to be observed by Indian citizen. It is considered that you cannot understand the value of fundamental rights unless until you observe certain fundamental duty. That's why fundamental duty is included. Earlier there were 10 fundamental duties. Now there are 11 fundamental duties. they are non-justiciable, means court cannot implement it, but now due to several reasons, it is also like directive principle becoming virtually justiciable, and now government and individual cannot defy it. Getting the point? So this is the thing. Now we have secular state. This was term introduced in 42nd Amendment. Secular state means the country has not its own religion. It gives opportunity to observe religion of its own choices, and it, on the other hand, it imposes restriction and control over any excesses caused by religion. So these are basic features of secularism in India. Get a point? Now, the next is universal adult franchise. Means any individual or citizen having 18 years plus can cast his vote. So we give all the citizens, there is no restriction as such. So all individuals who are citizens of India having 18 years plus age, they can cast vote in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, local body, Panchayati Raj institution, etc. Now we have single citizenship. Unlike other federal country, India gives single citizenship. Means you don't require to take citizenship of province. A single citizenship can be applied for both province and state. So this is very province and nation. Then there is independent bodies. In Indian Constitution there are several bodies, like some bodies are constitutional bodies, some bodies are statutory bodies, some are extra constitutional bodies. They are established for different purposes, like NDC, like Niti Aayog, like CAG, like Election Commission, like UGC. Get a point? These are bodies established for particular purpose, and they also get manifestation in Indian Constitution little bit. So this is also one of the important things. Now one thing more, that we have emergency provision. In Article 352 to Article 360, there are three types of emergency provision. First, national emergency in case of war, external aggression and armed rebellion. Financial constitutional emergency. Number two, it is in case of breakdown of constitutional machinery state. And third, financial emergency if credibility or financial stability of country is at stake, then under Article 360, financial emergency can be declared. But till now, there has not been financial emergency in country. In recent, there was one PIL in Supreme Court, that one individual approached Supreme Court to impose 360 in India on the wake of, you can say, COVID-19. But it is prerogative of executive. Court cannot direct government to impose 360, so it was just dropped. Now three-tier government we have. Earlier we have two-tier government, central and state, but due to democratic decentralization after 73rd and 74th Amendment, Indian Constitution has become, Indian administration has become three-tier government. Three-tier government means central level, state level and local level. And last but not the least, cooperative society. Earlier there was also not any mention of cooperative society. 42nd Amendment, last 73rd Panchayati Raj, Nagarpalika, and you can say cooperative society are also given constitutional status recently. So now this cooperative society become constitutional. So it is also important movement or step in direction of democratic decentralization. So there may be many more also features of Indian Constitution, but I want to focus on provision. What are provisions of Indian Constitution which influence Indian administration, its nature and its structure? So this is the first thing I try to point out, that preamble of Indian Constitution influence Indian administration significantly. You can say preamble is the, you can say, soul of Indian Constitution, a key to Indian Constitution. If someone does not want to study constitution completely. At least one goes through preamble, he can understand what is goals and objectives set in Indian constitution. Preamble is part of Indian constitution. Preamble is justiciable. Preamble can be amended also, but no any changes which can affect basic structure of Indian constitution can be possible here. So preamble, have you studied? Do you know what is preamble of Indian constitution? If you don't know, please remember it, because there can be question in preamble also in the polity portion, and you in interview also you can be asked. If you don't know, you may put yourself in trouble. So you try to make it clear. Now we have federal feature with unitary biasness. The same thing. It gave very important problem to India, that is center-state relation. Under Article 245 to Article 293, there are three types of relation: center-state legislative relation, center-state administrative relation, center-state financial relation. That's why I tell you, this federal system with unitary biasness, which is basically giving India a quasi-federal structure, causing emergence of center-state relation, one of the most controversial issue, which is still significant. So you can say the main force, the main provision behind center-state relation is this provision, that is federal system with unitary biasness. Get a point? Number 3, then the fundamental rights, directive principle, and fundamental duty. These things seems to be different, but in general they are not independent of each other. They are very much closely associated to each other. Fundamental rights are rights given to individual as guaranteed by Constitution. That's why it is called fundamental rights. Directive principles are duty given to state to establish welfare state objective, and fundamental duty is given to individual to observe certain duty while exercising fundamental rights. So this duty, fundamental rights, and directive principle all combine and to give good governance. So both required to work as a team and is both required to contribute each other. So this is the basic point. Now parliamentary democracy, it has very significant influence on nature and the scope of Indian administration. Parliamentary democracy is working at central level and state level. As a result, both at central level and state level, there are two heads of executive, one constitutional head and second actual head. Then you find also there is legislative ministerial responsibility to legislature at central level and state level both. So this is very important point. Civil service anonymity and neutrality is also feature of parliamentary democracy. Minister civil servant relation is also attribute of parliamentary democracy. President prime minister relation is also to a certain extent attribute of parliamentary democracy. So that parliamentary democracy is very important, having significant influence on the nature of Indian administration and its structure. Get a point? Structure now two heads of executive. Then civil servant nature means civil servants required to be neutral, civil servant required to be anonymous, etc. Now there is independent and integrated judiciary. In India we have independent judiciary because we have parliamentary democracy, but we have integrated judiciary also, means judiciary is integrated to each other. At national level there is Supreme Court, at province level there is High Court, and at local level there is subordinate court. All are combined, all work as a team, and there is some functional relation between all these three factors, and they give, you can say, influence on administration significantly, because now due to the independent and integrated nature of judiciary, legislature and executive cannot influence judiciary arbitrarily. There are certain rules and regulations through which only they can influence judiciary. And one thing more you require, that independent judiciary is in position to influence administration and like executive legislature very effectively. It is in position to act impartially. So all, particularly I must tell you, independent and integrated judiciary basically influence Indian administration, its structure, in nature significantly. It, wherever nature is concerned, it try to make Indian administration responsive to law, rule of law, and supremacy of constitution. And wherever structure is concerned, there are several guidelines with regard to structure of judiciary and Indian administration. President is definitely in position to appoint judges of Supreme Court and High Court, but there is several guidelines and directives. He cannot act discretionarily, and he cannot appoint any person as judge on his own discretion. So this is very important thing. The emergency provision under Article 352, Article 360 is basically unitary feature of a federal structure. This make Indian administration a unitary one. In Constitution, there are three types of emergency to address particular situation. It is basically when it introduce, it removes or it influences federal structure significantly or establish a unitary feature at administration. That is very important point. So provision of emergency makes Indian administration integrated one, unitary one, and little bit despotic also, because that time political system get disrupted and power came in the judiciary, a bureaucracy or administrative political system. That's why it becomes very powerful. Now there is three-tier federal structure. You know, Indian Constitution under Article 1, under Article 246, there is division of work between center and state. But you know, with secondly, 23rd and 24th Amendment, now Indian federation system is becoming now three-tier: central level, state level, and local level. You can well understand the importance of local administration, as in recent Prime Minister discussed or conveyed with had discussion with the local representative through video call and try to appraise the situation caused by COVID-19 and also try to get their support. So this is now emerging trend that Indian federal system is now in the process of becoming three-tier instead of being two-tier. Now a special provision in Indian Constitution. There are a special provision for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, women, children, or other backward classes, minority, etc. So this is to establish welfare state notion. This is to ensure eradication or removal of injustice, or you can say some sort of discrepancy or deprivation. So under Article 330, 332, 335, there is a special provision for SC/ST, 340, a special provision for other backward classes, some for you can say for women, for you can say children. There are some special provision. So these provision are Schedule 5 and Schedule 6 under Article 244. There is, you can scheduled area and tribal area. So this make Indian Constitution a unique one. This make Indian Constitution a specific one, which make Indian administration, which influence Indian administration significantly. You know, in Northeast, still there are several safeguards for tribal interests, and the Constitution is very much committed to upholding them. And last but not the least, basic structure of Indian Constitution, that is in Indian administration, in Indian Constitution, every amendment can be possible with respect to basic structure of Indian Constitution. Means any basic structure of Indian Constitution cannot be altered. That's why whatsoever government does, they require to work within the defined jurisdiction. You cannot go arbitrarily. You cannot go beyond that. So what you require, this sets some sort of limitation. This sets a demarcating line under which you are supposed to work. You cannot jump this line. You cannot encroach upon basic structure of constitution. If someone does, there is judiciary to review it and to uphold null and void in case of violation of constitution. So these are some features or provisions of Indian constitution which influence Indian administration significantly, its nature and its, you can say, structure also, and which continues still very much in present also. Get a point? So what I mean to say, that you try to understand this question, write your own answer. This topic is open-ended, so you require to be very, very conversive and very current, up-to-date information. Write it properly. You will enjoy while writing. I will rather request you to start writing, and if you have any difficulty, you can contact me. Okay, all the best. Enjoy.